Have you ever wondered why are there people who just pass through our lives very lightly, but leave an indelible mark, while there are people who are attached, close every day, but if one day they disappear, we still don't feel the lack? This question seems simple, but it touches one of the deepest layers of human life: connection. It doesn't matter if it's love, a friendship, or even just a glance between two strangers on a train. There is something invisible, powerful, and almost inexplicable that makes someone touch the deepest part inside us. And even if no logical explanation is given, that feeling still stays, persistent, insidious, sometimes for a lifetime. We often think that what attracts others is our appearance, our intelligence, our humor, or the way we talk and behave. But what if all of that is just the surface? What if the real reasons lie deeper, somewhere most of us avoid? Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, made a simple but powerful assertion: there are only two reasons why someone loves you. Not three, not five, just two. And when you understand these two reasons, everything changes. The way you see yourself, the way you see others, and the way you enter into relationships, all of it changes. Because then, you stop trying to be loved. You begin to understand what it is about you that makes others automatically gravitate towards you. What you are about to hear is not a list of love tips or a formula for impressing. It is a journey into the very roots of attraction, of love, of connection between two people. A journey where you not only learn how to be loved, but also how to recognize yourself in the eyes of others. Because maybe what makes others love you is something you have tried to forget, hidden, or never realized you had inside you. And maybe the light you are shining every day, the light that seems so ordinary, is reflecting something very great in the soul of others. But before we dive into the two reasons Carl Jung talked about, there is one thing you need to be ready for: the courage to look straight at yourself. Not the version that is polished to be loved, but the real you, with all the contradictions, cracks, and also where the light begins to shine. If you are ready, let's go on. And I promise, after this part, you will never look at your relationships the same way again. Carl Jung did not see people simply by their surface behaviors, emotions, or thoughts. He believed that there was an unexplored world inside each of us, a world made up of the parts we are conscious of, and the parts that are buried, rejected, and left in the unconscious. And when it came to love or attraction between people, Jung did not use the common reasons like we are compatible, he is funny, she is so beautiful. He went straight to the deepest level of connection, where reason no longer holds sway. According to Jung, all strong attraction comes from two opposing but closely linked elements: the darkness and the light within you. In other words, someone loves you not because you are beautiful, talented, or attractive in the traditional sense, but because there is something in you that makes them face themselves, something they have forgotten, lost, or never dared to look directly at. Maybe you have the free energy they crave. Maybe you express the anger they suppress, or you allow yourself to be authentic while they live in a mold. It's not about the obvious behavior. It's about the aura, the way you hold yourself in space, in your little gestures, in your eyes, in your silence. And the special thing is you don't have to try to create it, because what makes others love you truly has been inside you all along. Jung called these two parts shadow, the shadow, and persona, the face we choose to show the world. But make no mistake, persona here is not a fake mask, not a role to be recognized. It is the part you choose to express, the real selective part, and the part that carries the values, the way you cherish, and the shadow, That is the part you don't want to look at. It is the emotions you try to suppress. It's selfishness, jealousy, anger, passion, weakness, or even the talent you were once criticized for and learned to deny. What Jung discovered is that people are attracted not only to the light you radiate, but also to the shadow you carry. And here's a powerful paradox. Sometimes it's what you want to hide that makes people unable to take their eyes off you. And sometimes it's what you show, not because you try, but because it coincides perfectly with what the other person needs to see in themselves. So when someone loves you deeply, don't be so quick to believe that they love you just because you're kind, funny, or interesting. Think about it more broadly. They see in you a part of themselves, a forgotten part, a part they're longing to awaken. But to understand Jung's two core reasons, we need to dig deeper into each part. Because each of these factors not only determines attraction, but also lays the foundation for the sustainability or failure of a relationship. And the first part is not easy to look at: the shadow. So let's look at this question honestly. What you are trying to hide, is it the thing that is drawing others to you, like an unnamed gravitational force? If you have ever wondered why someone is so attracted to you, or conversely, why you can't get away from someone who seems completely out of place, maybe the answer lies in the next part. And that's where we're going to explore right now, the strange attraction that comes from the darkness inside you. When Carl Jung talked about the shadow, he wasn't talking about evil. He was talking about the unlived, unseen parts of ourselves that are rejected because they don't fit the image we want to hold for others. The irony is that it's that rejected part that holds the most powerful attraction in relationships. The shadow is more than just a collection of negative emotions. It can be the strength you suppress for fear of being seen as rude, the sensitivity you hide for fear of being hurt, the boldness, the passion, the creativity, once considered too much different, so you learn to suppress it. And then one day, someone comes along who carries that part of you that you tried to forget, and you're drawn to them as if you were meeting a part of yourself that you had abandoned. But the opposite also happens. When you are the one carrying the shadow of the other person, without saying it, without showing much, just your presence awakens a part of them that they dare not look at. And so they are attracted, seemingly without reason. But in fact, it is very reasonable. Jung said, "We are attracted to what we lack." And sometimes, that lack lies not in our abilities, but in our human nature that we have learned to hide for too long. Imagine a person who lives a disciplined life, always being proper, controlling emotions and behavior down to the last detail. When they meet someone who lives freely, is not afraid to express emotions, can get angry, can cry, can be silent without explanation. They see in the other person a liberation that they have never allowed themselves to have, without that person having to explain or try anything. The presence of the other person awakens the shadow that the first person tried to lock away. And from there, a strange, intense, sometimes irrational attraction begins to form. That is why we often fall in love with people that our reason cannot explain. We know that they may not be right for us. We know that they can hurt us, but we are still drawn to them, not because we are weak, but because they are a reflection of a forgotten part of us. And similarly, as the beloved, you have been such a mirror for someone. You may not have realized it, but it is very possible that the part you hide, deny, or are ashamed of is what makes others unable to take their eyes off you. The attraction of the shadow is deep. It is not revealed on the surface. It does not come from a smile or a smooth conversation. It lies in the unconscious frequency where two people touch each other in an uncertain moment. And this is not only romantic, it is also risky, because the attraction of the shadow can bring with it unhealed parts, unhealed wounds, old hurts that neither of you has ever fully understood. When you are attracted to someone through your shadow, or when you are attracted to someone in this way, what you are really tapping into is a part of yourself that is not yet integrated. And so if you are not mindful enough, this kind of connection can easily lead to emotional addiction, dependency, infatuation, or confrontation. Because the shadow is not just an attraction, it is also an unlearned lesson. And when two shadows meet without light, they do not illuminate each other. They only reflect back their wounds, their conflicts, their uncontrolled impulses. But it is here, if you are aware enough, that you will enter the deepest healing journey, because no one can help you see your shadow as clearly as the person you are strangely attracted to. And if you dare to face that, you will not only understand the other person, but you will understand yourself. That is the beauty and the danger of the feeling that comes from the shadow. It can awaken you, but it can also drag you into painful loops if you are not alert enough. So, the first reason why people love you sometimes is not beautiful. It does not come from what you are proud of, but from what you avoid. And that is why true love, love deep enough, always comes with an inner process. You cannot love and be loved sincerely if you have not looked at your own shadow. However, the journey does not stop here, because if the shadow is what attracts silently, then the light, the part you choose to show, is the element that creates a lasting connection and truly touches the heart of others. And that is the second reason why someone loves you, not because of what you hide, but because of what you dare to show. If the shadow is the part that attracts silently, then the light is the part that creates a clear connection where others are not only attracted, but truly want to stay. This is the second reason why someone loves you, according to Carl Jung. And this time, it is not what you hide, but what you dare to show others honestly. Jung called this part the persona, that is, the face you choose to show the world. But understand this, the persona here is not a mask or a role. It is not a better version that you put on to be loved. The persona has power only when it is a conscious choice, an honest expression of the part of you that you have understood, reconciled with the shadow, and are now willing to share with the world. That is when you act, not to impress, but because you are. Others love you for the light you radiate, not because it is bright, perfect, or outstanding, because it is real. So real that they feel safe, they are illuminated. They are reminded of the good parts of themselves that they have never dared to live out. Your light can be calm when things are chaotic. It can be gentleness when others are angry. It can be the way you listen with your eyes, or the unpretentious steadfastness when you stand in the middle of a noisy group. Your light is not something ostentatious. It is the way you show up in the world when you have nothing to prove. And the strange thing is, when you show up like that, others feel that they can let down their defenses, can be themselves, can be more honest. So your light is not just a beautiful thing for others to admire. It is an invitation, a subtle signal that says, you are allowed to be as real as I am. The attraction of light is a lasting attraction. It does not flare up like the attraction of shadow, but it has anchoring power, because light comes with clarity, transparency, consistency. Others know who they are standing before. They don't have to guess, don't have to doubt, don't have to wonder if you're pretending. And that, in a world full of suspicion, is an incredibly rare attraction. But to get to that light, you have to go through the shadow. You can't pretend to be real. You can't borrow someone else's words, someone else's model to construct a calculated sincerity. Others unconsciously always feel the solidity inside you. If you haven't faced your shadow, the light you project will lack vitality. It becomes a disguise, and that disguise, sooner or later, will crack. That's why light is only truly attractive when it comes from inner reconciliation. When you understand how you've been hurt, what you've been afraid of, what parts of yourself you've been avoiding, and then from all those pieces, you still choose to step out into the world, clearly, fully, imperfectly, but authentically. When you do that, your light touches others, not loudly, not ostentatiously, but very deeply. And this is the core difference between shallow relationships and deep, fleeting connections that make people remember each other for life. One is sparkle, the other is presence. Others may like you for your looks, your charm, your commonalities, but they only truly love you when they feel seen through the light you share. And the most wonderful thing is when you are authentic, you are also unconsciously allowing others to be authentic. No more trying to be interesting, no more playing someone to impress, no more following a standard to be loved. At that point, the relationship is no longer a bargaining between two roles, but a meeting of two selves moving toward the truth. That is where love begins to take root. But is light enough? Can you love and be loved by simply being true without facing the shadow? No, because half the truth is still a lie. True love is only created when the shadow and the light are acknowledged. When you not only attract someone with your lovable parts, but make them want to stay, even when you reveal your vulnerability, messiness, and imperfections. And when these two parts, shadow and light, meet, a new kind of love emerges, not to fill, but to expand. Keep going, because in the next part, we will enter the heart of this whole journey, where the light and the dark merge, and true love begins. This is where two seemingly opposite worlds meet. The shadow, the silent, primitive, forgotten part, and the light, the part you choose to express, the part you have recognized, loved, and dared to live with. And only when both are present can true love be formed. Not a temporary feeling, but a connection that is deep, has mutual recognition, and can last over time. Attraction begins with the shadow. From the unconscious parts of you and the other person touching each other as a reminder, I used to forget this part of myself, but with you I feel it come alive. That feeling is so strong that sometimes you cannot explain it. But the deep connection is only complete when the light is also brought into that encounter. When you love only with the darkness, the relationship is often dramatic. Everything is easy to burn, easy to collide, easy to be addicted to each other, but difficult to maintain. Because both of you are in an unconscious dance, where the unhealed parts are constantly bumping into each other. They reflect each other's wounds, but there is not enough light to see and tolerate it. On the other hand, when you only love with light, that is, love the ideal representation of each other, love the harmony, the pleasant, the acceptable, the relationship easily becomes superficial. Because you do not really see the whole person. You love the version of them when they are okay, when they are happy, when they are exactly what you expect. But when they show their confusion, anger, insecurity, you do not know how to face them. Therefore, only when the darkness and the light are both recognized, both brought into the relationship, can love truly become strong. Imagine a relationship where you do not have to hide your imperfect parts, where you are allowed to be messy, wrong, weak, but still seen with the eyes of presence. Not pity, not judgment, but recognition. I see you, full as you are, and from there you begin to see the other person that way too. In that space, love is no longer a trade. I give you this so you can give me that. It becomes a place for both of you to return to yourself, and from yourself, they choose to go together. That's when the relationship becomes a journey of growth, not a destination. A place where every conversation, every conflict, every moment of silence can become an opportunity to understand each other, understand yourself, and grow together. And it's here that the concepts of conditional love and unconditional love become clearer than ever. Because you no longer love because the other person meets some need. You love because in them you see both the light and the dark, and you don't need them to be perfect to be worthy of love. Love like that no longer depends on whether the other person makes you happy, whether they make you feel complete. Love like that depends on one thing. Do you dare to see yourself and them clearly, even when they are not beautiful, not right, not lovely? And when you dare, when you can stand there, not running away, not avoiding, not manipulating, then something very peaceful happens. Love is no longer something to be pursued, but something to be kept. The blending of darkness and light in a relationship creates a very special energy. It has both the raw honesty of vulnerability and the nobility of forgiveness. It is not loud, but it is deep. It is not perfect, but it is steady. And it can only appear when both people enter the relationship with a commitment to be true to themselves first, then to each other. This kind of love requires a lot of courage. The courage not to hide the shadow, the courage not to embellish the light, and most importantly, the courage not to run away when the other person is also fighting their own darkness. But once you have entered into such a love, you will no longer accept any other superficial relationship, because you have tasted the feeling of being seen completely and loved completely. And when that happens, you will realize true love has never been about finding an ideal person. True love has about finding someone brave enough to go through yourself with you. But to maintain this harmony, there is one crucial factor, the factor that will decide whether that love will last or will crack over time. That is emotional maturity, the way you enter into a relationship, not to be completed, but to be expanded. And that is what we will enter into in the next part. Mature love, where you are no longer looking for a partner, but for a companion. There is an image that has been repeated too many times in popular culture, in novels, movies, and even fairy tales that we grew up with, that each person is a other half searching for the other half to complete them. That idea sounds romantic, full of promise, but it is also the very thing that has caused so many people to enter love with a feeling of lack of completion, lack of fullness, lack of value, and they believe only when they find someone suitable they will feel loved, complete, able to be themselves. However, Jung, Minter, and modern psychologists have pointed out that no one can complete you but yourself. Love is not the combination of two broken pieces. It is the meeting of two people who have been and are on the journey to become the full version of themselves. Mature love does not start with someone coming to fill you, but it starts when you are full within yourself and ready to share that fullness with another person. You don't need someone to save you. You need someone to walk with, not someone who makes you less lonely, but someone who can walk with you through loneliness in a more meaningful way. Not someone who makes you stronger, but someone who doesn't make you pretend to be strong when you no longer have the strength. This kind of love doesn't need fireworks. It doesn't need vows, it needs honesty. It needs two people who dare to look at each other and themselves with all the truth, even when it's not beautiful, not nice, not pleasant, because mature love doesn't avoid the truth. It accepts and tolerates. It doesn't expect the other person to always be right, always be gentle, always indulgent, but it understands that sometimes that person will be tired, will be wrong, will be unreasonable. And when that happens, you don't withdraw your love, you offer your presence. That is why those who have gone through the journey of looking into the shadow have learned to live true to their light. They no longer enter a relationship to find someone to love, but to build a space where they can love and be loved sustainably. In that space, no one takes responsibility for healing anyone else. Each person takes responsibility for their own emotions and chooses to love from initiative, not from lack. They do not demand that each other always do the right thing, but they commit to always communicate, will not be silent to avoid, will not use emotions as a weapon to control, will not push their hurt onto the other person and call it love. Because they understand that love is not finding someone who makes you no longer hurt. It is finding someone who makes you no longer afraid to face hurt. Mature love allows people to grow, not distort each other to fit the frame of the perfect couple. It is where you grow, not only in joy, but also in the most uncertain moments. And that is also why true relationships are so powerfully reflective. Because the person who stays with you for a long time will not be the one who makes you feel good all the time, but the one who makes you see yourself most clearly, including the things you like and dislike about yourself. That person does not come to make you forget the past, but to give you the courage to face it. They do not come to continue writing a fairy tale, but to write a real story with you. Sometimes messy, sometimes breathtakingly beautiful, but always true. And then in that truth, you begin to realize something very important. You do not need too many relationships, just one, but deep enough, real enough, free enough to be yourself. That is when love is no longer something you are looking for, but something you are building. To do that, we need one last quality, and the rarest of all, awareness. For if the shadow is the starting point, and the light is the connecting point, then awareness is what keeps it all from collapsing. In the end, after all that has been shared, from the unconscious shadow to the conscious light, from the instinctive attraction to mature love, we realize a truth that seems obvious, but is the hardest to live. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to dare to be yourself. Not the best version, not the one without flaws, without fear, without contradictions, but the version that has the courage to be fully present, to go with both the light and the dark, with both the healed and the unfinished. We often think that to make someone love us, we need to impress. We need to be more beautiful, more talented, more interesting. But the truth is, what makes others love you and remember you forever is not what you show to be loved, but what you show when you are not sure whether you will be loved or not. It is that genuine, vulnerable, unprepared part that makes people touch each other, not through the mind, but through the heart. Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by visualizing images of light, but by making conscious the shadow." That is not only a principle of psychotherapy, but also the key to deep relationships, because you cannot truly connect with anyone until you are connected to yourself. You cannot truly accept others if there is something in you that is not recognized, and you cannot love freely if you are afraid of being abandoned, of not being chosen, of not being worthy. Lasting love is built only on a foundation of conscious presence, aware of your feelings, aware of your actions, aware of your choices, aware of when you are reacting from the shadow and when you are acting from the light, aware of stopping in the middle of an argument and asking yourself, what am I trying to protect? My ego, my fear of being hurt. And it is that awareness that keeps love alive. Not gifts, sweet words, or long-term plans. It is the courage to be authentic every day, even when it means taking risks, accepting not pleasing others, accepting uncertainty, because true love does not come from control. It grows in freedom, and no one can be free until they make peace with themselves. When you are brave enough not to pretend to be someone else, when you choose authenticity over perfection, when you stop playing roles and start being authentic, something magical happens. You begin to attract people who are on that journey too. People who don't love you because you make them happy, but because they see themselves in you. People who don't need you to be better, but just to be more authentic. People who don't hide from your complexity, but know how to stand with you in the midst of it. And here's the most important thing. When you're real, you don't just attract love, you become love. You don't have to chase, you don't have to beg, you don't have to be lovable or desirable. You're present. That presence is enough to create a connection, not with everyone, but with the right people. People who see you through the light and the dark. People who don't stay because you make them comfortable, but because you make them feel like they belong. And that's the only love worth building. A love that's not about completing each other, but about growing together. So if you've ever wondered why someone loves you, or why you can't get over someone, maybe the answer isn't in logic, or looks, or behavior, or commonalities. It's in something deeper. That person touched the realest part of you, the part you've kept hidden, or the part you've been dying to be true to. And you have also touched the truest part of them, the part they have forgotten, rejected, or are still on the way to find. Love in the end is not about possession, it is about reflection. It is where two people dare to put down their egos, to step together on a journey that is bigger than both of them, the journey of being fully human. And if you have the courage to live like that, to love like that, you will see one thing very clearly. Love does not need to be sought. It appears by itself, where you are truly yourself. Everything you have heard up to this point, about the shadow, the light, the presence, mature love, will be just theory unless you make a choice. Not a choice about who to love, or a choice about what relationship to be in. A choice about being conscious. A very quiet choice, but one that determines the entire quality of the connections you have in your life. What does it mean to be conscious? It means that you take responsibility for yourself, for your emotions, for how you love, how you react, how you expect, how you withdraw, how you get close. It means that you stop expecting others to do the right thing for you to feel safe. You no longer say, I am hurt by that person, but instead you ask, why am I feeling this way? Where does it come from? Is it really the other person's fault, or is it an echo of an old fear that has not been healed? Living mindfully means you see others as they are, not through the glass of expectations, not through the prism of your own wounds. You no longer love someone just because they fit your ideal. You love because you are present enough to see the truth in that person and accept the imperfection. Being mindful also means daring to stop when the relationship no longer nourishes you. Not clinging, not explaining, not trying to change yourself to fit in, because you understand that staying is not the noblest thing, but staying while still keeping your true nature. When you choose to live like this, a profound change occurs. You no longer enter a relationship looking for love. You enter it with the love that is already within you. You no longer demand that the other person always understand, always please, always hold you back. You understand that love does not lie in clinging, but in the freedom to choose each other every day, not because you need it, but because you want it. Not because of fear of loneliness, but because of appreciation for the shared journey. And it is that awareness that keeps the relationship going the long way. When both of you no longer live by reaction, no longer driven by wounds or lack, love is no longer a weakness, but becomes a strength. It is no longer a question of will they love me forever. It becomes a question of am I loving them the right way, from a whole place within me. Love does not need to be maintained by fear, by control, by strategy. It only needs one person who is aware enough to hold space for both of you to be true. And if you are lucky, both of you are aware. But if not, just one person who is aware, the relationship is completely different. Living like that, loving like that, you no longer expect the story to end with a happy ending, because you understand the real after lies in every moment. When you live truly, love truly, choose truly, you don't need anyone to prove your worth anymore, because you have chosen to live as a valuable person. Not valuable because of being loved, but because of daring to live true to yourself every day. And the most beautiful thing is when you live mindfully, you don't just change the way you love, you change the energy you bring to this life. Others will feel it, not by words, but by the way you are present, the way you listen, the way you don't judge, the way you don't need to control others to feel safe. You don't need to be loud to get attention, because your presence is enough to create deep silence, where others also want to return to themselves. And perhaps this is true love. Love without attachment, without lack, without control, but a love rooted in mindfulness, where two people truly see each other and choose to walk together, not because they need each other to survive, but because they appreciate the value that companionship brings. This is not easy love, but if you have come this far, if you have dared to face the shadow, choose to live in the light, and be fully present with yourself, then I believe you are ready, not to find someone, but to become someone that true love can find. Because the deepest love does not come from the pursuit. It comes from the moment you return fully to yourself.